years. 42 years of productions that center our culture, our stories, our perspectives from the past and present as told through the lens of the Black experience. So you see, Genesis is our way of celebrating works in development, in supporting new ideas, new forms in the theater, and certainly exciting writers. So it's a celebration of the writer's voice. And it's also an opportunity for you to meet and chat and ask questions of the writers after each reading. And we're also excited that this year we are partnering with an amazing, groundbreaking company in New York, High Arts, to co-present this festival, and I'm honored, so honored that with us tonight is its interim executive director, Erin McKinney, who you will meet in the conversations with the writers after each reading. We celebrate 3 wonderful artists this year. Jalen Livingston, whose reading will be tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock. Ernie De Silva, whose reading is Saturday at 7 o'clock. And Katie Madison, who we are thrilled to be presenting to you tonight, right now. Ms. Madison is a member of Critical Breaks. It's the residency at High Arts. And these are excerpts performed from the works she's developing there now. Sun Songs and Taking Space. Enjoy.
The love I'm looking for, take 6. Oh, it's always the first one. Clap. There's a love I'm looking for, but where it comes from I'm unsure. Down below or high above, there's a love I'm looking for. If the river runs shallow and blood flows deep, then the salvation hallowed is the company we keep. Born into tradition, it's our birthright mission to transition through time together. Whether brethren by book or sisters mistook by misters, our overlooked glories and forsaken quarries, majorities mistaken for minorities, awaken the stories taken we fight to tell, yelling to tighten the bonds we share. But we wouldn't dare care for one another because it's unfair to hold one over the other. So we stand still, hands milling miles an hour, thinking powers, posting sour remarks, boasting the mark you make is the selfie you take. When needing something real, what might be fake feels like it's feeding the heel that's stealing the light. Who's to say the way we use what we choose to misuse is or isn't okay? In this day and age, an upgrade can send you flying higher than you ever imagined. And the sky smells sweeter when the Citadel greeter is sitting at the gate looking you straight in the eye. There's a love I'm looking for, but where it comes from I'm unsure. Down below or high above, there's a love I'm looking for. God forbid we sit with ourselves amongst shelves of those who came before, who opened the door and forged forward when there was no direction. An election was being chosen, seeing projections of the future frozen in the present, because the past keeps repeating itself, and the last one to repent is the one bent on staying where we are, which is far from where we need to be. What we see and what we show ourselves could be keeping us from knowing ourselves, because the versions of ourselves we want to be are filtered through an off-kilter trajectory. And the guilt stirring inside we don't want to name for shame of admitting we're playing the game is like committing heresy against the sacred book. It's all beginning to look the same, catered to the hater who blocked and blasted and unlocked the last thing you ever wanted to show, never letting go. But once you post it, it's out there, shared by anyone and everyone and no one, because who cares except anyone and everyone and no one? And the nature of it all is an artificial withdrawal nurtured by calls for attention. So I ask, where is the love I'm looking for that eases the disease to ignore things down below and above? Where is the love I'm looking for? I find myself back at the river looking deeper than before, wondering if the keeper of the truth is in fact the shore. The tide might wash away blood-stained lies kept at bay, but the goodwill spilled of our ancestors killed lived on day after day after day. The reverie of memories and melodies singing sweetly, and the harmony of the parts we disarm can be alarming. When we hear what rings clear, listening to things not so near, fear can bring a halt to our most human faults, stalling the call from those assaulting a progression of transgressions. And regression turns to depression. It doesn't care who you are or who you love. When I'm too distracted to look above or below, convinced I know the answer can't possibly be within, all I see is what I live without. But the river runs free. Always, never concerned with doubt or learned direction or drought. It just moves, the same way blood flows deep, keeping us alive. Maybe to thrive, we need to set in motion and steep the notion that what's keeping us from diving into something new is our lack of looking back at what was and has always been. Therefore, the love I'm looking for comes from the shore, trusted by the sand below, adjusting with the thrust of the river flow. Kissing the hissing tide striding above, there is and always will be love. The love I'm looking for.
Black apple baby, running free in the sun. Black apple baby, journey's just begun. Black apple baby, grins from ear to ear. Black apple baby, untouched by fear. Black apple baby, feels the breeze on his skin. Black apple baby, eases each moment he's in. Black apple baby, can touch the sky. Black apple baby, knows he's meant to fly. Black apple baby can't yet see the tarnished color staining the sea, imprinted on the wind, singing sweetly as it pulls us all downstream. Black apple baby is the American dream. Black apple baby dares to cross the line. Black apple baby cares of his own design. Black apple baby, tender and strong. Black apple baby writes his own song. Black apple baby knows who is wise. Black apple baby sees through the disguise. Black apple baby doesn't talk to strangers. Black apple baby is keen to danger. Black apple baby can't get here. Cracks in the sky, breaking the air here. Thunder numbs our ears. far more dangerous than it seems. Black Apple Baby is the American dream. Black Apple Baby only looks back to grapple with uncertainty so he can see with certainty. Certainly the curtain he's holding will let in the sun, and it isn't the one Auntie told him never to touch. Black Apple Baby wants to play outside. Black Apple Baby yearns for the tide. Black Apple Baby remembers their toes in the sand. Black Apple Baby felt free enough to hold your hand. Black Apple Baby dreamt of dancing free in moonbeams, because Black Apple Baby couldn't yet see the nightmare of the American dream.
I admire the people who play and sing. You know, this is Send Me Somewhere, take 4. Oh, that's why too. My light was off. That's okay. That's what I mean, yeah. Send Me Somewhere, take 4. Send me somewhere I can transcend the something, pretending to be the sum of my body. Send me somewhere. Send me somewhere. Send me to the moon and back again. Send me soon to track the end where time stands still and the pendulum swings outside the expected rhythm. Send me to the stars where the air is clear. Send me far, but hold my heart near and close enough to feel it beat in time with the moments we're destined to meet. Send me somewhere I can transcend this something, pretending to be the sum of my body. Send me somewhere. Send me somewhere. Send me on a comet to catch the breeze. Send me fast where moving's easy and the past subsides like gentle waves dancing to an unexpected rhythm. Send me out of orbit on a path on my own. Send me to a place I can call my home, unbound by walls or physical form. All we hear is the sound of the storm calling, calling, When in sync, we can see forever, but sometimes we're blinded by the thought of never escaping the pattern that holds us hostage, draping Saturn with skewed diagnostics. My seat is saved and yours is too. All that matters now is what we do and where we go. Oh, the places we know we will soon discover. I'm uncovered and unfiltered, and if I tilt just a little bit further, I might rise enough to bend. Send me somewhere I can transcend the something pretending to be the sum of my body. Send me somewhere. Send me somewhere. Good?
It's a happy thing.
Two blue balloons in outer space, embracing the view from me to you. Two blue balloons flying free enough to see eternity, eternity where time stands still and billions of civilians land on your windowsill just to take a look at a sight so profound that might have found the light that grounds two blue balloons in outer space. Two blue balloons in the Milky Way, intertwined in waves of gamma rays. Two blue balloons holding strong to a magnet song lasting all night long, all night long and all the day through. Grow dark matter halos we fall into just for a chance to see the possibility of the gravity electric between two blue just might be. Two blue balloons in outer space, embracing the view from me to you. Two blue balloons flying free, free enough to see return to learn who you are is someone never far from who you were and who you'll be. You like me, see. Unlearn the lessons that no longer serve you. Discern the guests that go stronger for you. Earn the right to swerve around the turns that fight to turn you down. The ground from which we originally came is the ground in which that holds our names, free of a tongue colonized, a tongue pierced with disguised prizes for the price of all we know. As you grow, you begin to see the patterns of a skewed fraternity, the paternity of forefathers fighting for modernity. Our ancestors didn't bother. Maternity guides us back to our roots. Mother Earth never wore a suit. She never worked a 9 to 5. She just worked to grow things that could revive our spirit and all that grows within alive beings, breathing in deep to feel. Breathe it in. Let us heal from genetic scars. Let us feel real enough to touch the stars and know that yes, that is our right, and yes, it's not our job to fight. Their plight will trap them in the distraction of racism was never ours to win. Return to learn who you are is someone never far from who you were and who you'll be. You like me, see. A summer stained in red and pain, one single black female made a call to gain enough words on a page to reach each black artist who took to the stage, preaching for unity. She teaches the power of you and me coming together to tell our truth, even if told in the music of youth. We can see in the notes she left, the notes she gave to amend the theft of white supremacy in all its heft. A self-penance legacy is poorly sown weft. 1919 came and went, and yet here we are in another pandemic sent across seas that call from bodies falling from shore to shore. Those that stalled made sure to cash in before the mainstream media told us their versions of diversions. Even Virgin Mary took a second look in the book that promises absolution for the most crooked crook. Conditions exist for some to permit a token of forgiveness if they commit. But what if where we see ourselves lies somewhere further than any Ivy League shelf? What do the trees have in common with the breeze? What can I learn from salty seas and a meadow humming with bumblebees? Past the horizon and past the moon, past the entire concept of soon. There, I can track the stars, somewhere far where I can see. It's all based on proximity. Proximity of me to you and you to me, proximity of my reflection to the hue of the moon, looking down, casting a shadow in a small Brooklyn window where a little black girl is looking just so. She knows there is something more. Where there is woman, there is magic, as Entizaki Shange would say, for anyone who takes the time to gather the clues laid out in our history, laid out in our ancestry, laid out in our discoveries of ourselves. Return to learn who you are is someone never far from who you were and who you'll be. You like me, see. To move far enough ahead, we've got to spread out and shed what doesn't serve us, to be able to thread what unnerves us with the same flames that made the Milky Way. Again, when a little girl raised along the Nile knew her power, no denial, I imagine she danced while she threw the embers of her power to the sky to create the heavens. I spy with my little eyes a dream that's not deferred but stirred with a heat of possibility, melting away the doubt that preys upon the souls of black folks. Stoke the fire and inspire the sun to run. Desire is a gift that doesn't expire, and when your entire self settles with your soul, the fractions become whole. Satisfaction is also your right, and with less distraction of the fight, interactions are no longer in spite of, and in light of that rebirth, your worth is reflected in all things above. Return to learn who you are is someone never far from who you were and who you'll be. You like me, see.
Wow. Wow. Thank you, Katie, for taking us on that journey. Thank you for those words, that music. Ricardo, Crossroads, thank you so much for this opportunity and this partnership. Wow, I'm still recovering from that beautiful, those beautiful few moments that we got to share with you, Katie. Thank you so much. So yeah, let's jump right into conversation. First, just wanted to introduce myself. I am Aaron McKinney. I am the interim executive director of High Arts, and I'm so excited to be here, calling from traditional Lenape land, known now as Brooklyn, New York, and really just excited to be a part of this festival, to be in conversation with these artists. So if you missed last night, you missed a great conversation with all three artists. And then for the next 3 nights, we'll be getting a little more in depth with these artists. So I am pleased, and it is my pleasure to introduce Katie Madison. Katie is a Brooklyn-based musical theater artist. She received her BFA in musical theater from the University of Michigan and her MFA in musical theater writing and composition from New York University's Tisch Graduate Musical Theater Writing Program. Her compositions have been commissioned by the University of Michigan School of Music, Theater and Dance, Musical Theater Department. And also her show Taking Space, with which you heard some excerpts from tonight, was a finalist for the 2020 Sundance Theater Lab residency. She has also been one of the 3 finalists for the National Black Theater Soul Producing Residency. She has been a writer, composer, director, performer, and producer in various venues in New York. And currently, she is one of High Arts Critical Breaks residency, so resident artist. So she is in residency right now with us and developing Sun songs, and looking forward to that presentation on April 29th. So you can visit High Arts website or our social media and get more information on that. So ladies and gentlemen, Katie Madison, we are so happy to have you here with us tonight. Your beautiful voice and your beautiful words. So if you could, let's just start off very general. Just tell us about yourself and about your journey leading up to today.
Thank you, all of you. Thank you, Crossroads. Thank you, this Genesis Festival. It's kind of nuts. I literally pulled out my dramaturgy work while I was watching, wanting to take notes. I was like, oh, huh. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, High Art. Thank you for I have family and friends watching, so thank you for people who are tuning in. I'm originally from Michigan. I was born outside of Detroit and then raised in Traverse City, Michigan, which is the cherry capital of the world. I moved to New York in 2011 after I graduated with my undergrad in musical theater performance. I showcased. My whole class moved to New York with dreams of being on the, Great White Way, which is a complicated phrase now we know, or just always has been. Anyway, how did I get to where I am now? I auditioned a lot without an agent, non-equity, doing the thing. And I would leave auditions feeling unseen and feeling I'll never forget, there was this it's so complicated because I don't want to bite my tongue because everyone's connected to everything, but then at the same time I think that transparency is important and brave, and so I don't want to my hesitation comes from my conscious choice to filter what I'm going to say, just because I think that's how I'm going to do it right now. Might be different later. But I was at an audition and everyone behind the table was white and everyone who was auditioning was not white. Everyone was Black. It was a room full of beautiful Black women. And we all started singing this song that is very known, and it was really magical. And I couldn't help but feel this. Everyone behind the table was kind of pointing and looking ooh, ah. And then when they made a cut there, it was very clearly colorism, just blatantly. And I have the language for these terms now, but I didn't at the time. At the time, I just was that didn't feel great. And then there was one audition for a show that I was my last one, and I did my character research, and I went to the audition. I was all really excited about this opportunity. It's a big Broadway show, and I went in and I did what I did, and the casting director, who's a white man, just said, "Okay, that was great, but I need you to be Blacker." And I was like, I don't know what you mean by that, because I'm playing this character and I don't know if that language pertains to the character, and he said, I want you to, be the girl in the back of the club named Shaniqua with the, the big earrings and the big nails that everyone's afraid of. And I was like, I can't connect that to the character. And then the other thing that I was doing is my brain kind of went in a spiral about, is that what this character was always written as? This kind of anyway, so I stopped auditioning. I was like, that didn't feel good, and that's not why I got into musical theater. It's a lot, and so for a long time, I was just bartending and watching kids, and was this is what I'll do, and I'll make my money, and I'm in the wheel. And at some point, I had this thought that was like, I don't want to do nothing. And I think that I've identified a problem, which it feels like the people who are telling our stories on a huge level don't look like us. And that doesn't feel good. So then I was like, I can start writing. Also, it also coincided with the death of my dad. And I found that there was this ability for me to say things in music that I just couldn't say with my words. And I was like, well, I need to figure out how to do this because I don't really know. So I applied to school and I got in. And then, I've just been kind of like working my ass off, I've been working with everything that I have to hone my craft and learn as much as I can in order to unlearn all the other things. And then started reading and like finding myself in Blackness. And we have always been there. And that wasn't what I was given in my teachings. And so now I'm here, and even watching all the stuff that I shared, it's a little nuts for me because I'm just like, what? Like, in what world? I'm sure there are people watching too. It's like, is this what Katie does? Like, she kind of hibernated and unplugged and found and just figured out what I wanted to say, and then also gave myself permission to say it my way, because everyone's always got something to say about how you're saying what you say. At the end of the day, the way you say what you say is the only way you can save yourself. I put it in my words. I don't know if that is the answer you were looking for.
I'm looking for the answer that you have given. The answer that you give. Yeah.
I just want to say, my God, from the conversation that we had last night, Katie, you were speaking about that issue of, well, how do people accept you? And I didn't know about this story about your audition, but for one thing, I'm glad you ended up where you are now. That's for one. That's the most important thing. But being a person who has come a little before you, I apologize, because I thought we had fixed that shit. I thought so. Because I was an actor and I went through the same thing, except that when I did auditions, I remember one in particular, just like yours, and they said the same thing, except they couldn't use the term, "Can you be blacker?" They would have been kicked out. They would have been put out there. So they did. So what they said was, well, can you be like a little more laid back, a little more like streetish or something? So I'm so sorry that you're going through that, that you went through that, because we should have gone beyond that. We as an industry, we should have gone beyond that. But I'm grateful that you got to where you are, because, pieces like Black Apple Baby, and how you responded to that child and what that's all about, and what he or she has in store that they don't know yet about the American dream, is what you're dealing with. You're putting yourself in it, and I thank you for that.
Yeah, that piece too, like, shout out to Dan Belnavis. You can find his work online. He actually wrote a really brave piece about his experience in the theater. And unfortunately, these stories, mine is one of many, it's, I remember Black Apple Baby, I went to the playground across the street from my house, and I took my camera, and I was just sitting there, and there was this woman, and she was there with her nephew named Apple, and he was running in the sprinklers. And I have these beautiful pictures of this like beautiful Black boy, I think he was maybe like 5, and he was so happy, right? And she literally said to me, she says, "That's what it looks like before the world gets you." And so of course I went home and I wrote, and so there's a piece in Taking Space that introduces that, called Before the World Gets You. And that's what presented that that song, right? And Dan is actually the first person to sing something that I've written that wasn't me. I just was like, hey, I think I wrote this thing. Like, would you mind singing it? And it's kind of notated funny. And I had this idea and it's about this stuff. And he said yes, you know, and then after the fact, I found that footage, and that footage too, like I was looking for like public domain. I think I Googled like public domain Black Joy video archives, right? And that not a lot comes up. And even in that piece is so edited, because what somebody behind the lens who doesn't love us as much as we love us is going to attach or latch onto parts of our experience that aren't necessarily our whole truth. And so that was interesting in that piece, that there's a lot of like, there was like domestic violence and there was yelling and there's all these things. And I was like, yes, there's ick within what America told us we need to do, and that exists. At the same time, though, we have the ability to access our joy. And like, that's, I've been thinking about that a lot, that like from a young age, and we talked about this yesterday, that like, why don't we get to do what we do for love? Why don't we get to love? Why don't we get to feel all these feelings that we should get to feel, right? And then how do you know, I don't have any children and I am a child, and this also, my mother is white, and so there's this conversation that I can't have with her, and so I've had to learn how to have that conversation that I want to have with who I can have it with, because she can't, even to her best ability. I've come from her body, but she will never know what it's like to live in my Black skin, in my Blackness, and I have to define that for myself. And what is America, and whose dream was it? And like that video, you know, I remember sending to Dan, and he just was like, ooh. And even watching it tonight, the work continues to show all that's in it that you don't know is in there. And I promise you, when I write the thing, I know what I'm thinking of, but I don't realize all of that it's saying. You know, Debbie's always saying, my girlfriend, like, it's the distance of time and the gift of time. And, you know, Rick, to your point, like, we see all the stuff that's happening right now. I didn't even know, like, a lot of Black equity actors are protesting what's going on. Like, they're going to go and march, and nobody wants to say anything. And like, why we tell stories is like so rooted in love, and yet all the ick around our ability to tell those stories and which ones get told and why and all that stuff. And, you know, and then you look at a theater like Crossroads, right? That's like, we're rooted in these spaces. You look at High Arts, and like, I said this to Aaron initially, I walked in that space and was like, first of everybody on his team was not white. So there's like this kind of base level of conversation that you were able to have. Like, there's still going to be stuff, but I just was like, oh, I don't have to censor myself. And then even in that, like, it was a space that didn't police my Blackness in that space, because there are also some Black spaces that are like, well, this is the way to do it. And it's like, we're constantly trying to shed all of that stuff that was sold us as the American dream. Anyway, I'm sorry that happened to you, Rick, and I'm sorry to anybody who has and is experiencing that in any job.
So many questions I have, Katie. So many questions I have. I want to go directly to the work that was presented tonight. And just thinking about you creating this work, you know, this work wasn't created today. This work wasn't created this week. But it's still so very relevant, like this actual minute. So 2 questions I want to ask about specific moments in that video. We just talked about Black Apple Baby, and in this moment, I have to name Dante Wright, and to think about the American dream for Dante Wright, who is no longer here.
Yeah.
But the other moment I want to ask about is, in return, there was this complete moment of silence after the spoken word before you started singing again. Was that intentional? Why was that intentional? Or why? What was the reason, or was it intentional? Because I've just found that sometimes silent moments are sometimes the strongest part of pieces, because it's what's not said, or it's that moment that you have to sit in and be with yourself or process what you just heard. So can you just talk a little bit about that moment of silence in Return?
I so wish that was planned. I so wish I was that fly. Like in watching it, I was like, oh, that has to be there. And that's the crazy thing about the work, that the work will always end up being what it needs to be. And that's the thing that reminds me, it's like, it's bigger than me. Like, I'm a vessel, and my job is just to like listen and do the work and show up. The return and the love I'm looking for, those were both two tracks so I notated it and then pulled it into Logic, and as opposed to live instruments, which is complicated because then you feel like you're on the clock, right? It doesn't have as much live theater and live musicians, right? It's like you'll see in the other stuff that with the working even within Two Blue Balloons with Jarrett, right? It resonates some more. Anyway, I knew that there needed to be space there. I did not anticipate it to be such a long pause. And so I just moved it. And then even in that moment, I was thinking like, this feels really long. And similar, like, it's such a gift to have Debbie be a lens capturing it in the moment, because I'm so in it that I don't see it until after the fact. Same thing when I've written it. Like, I write it and then I put it out there. And it's actually a long time before I can look back on it objectively, because I'm like I'm engaging with it, that I can't just receive it. And so Debbie was like, I was like, oh, was that too long? Was that weird? And Debbie was like, just wait, like, it's perfect. And I do think I think it was on Instagram that I saw, is it George Floyd's girlfriend was Dante Wright's teacher?
I think so, yes.
And then Emmett Till's mother was Fred Hampton's mother was Emmett Till's babysitter. I hope I'm getting that right. If I'm not,
I remember the names. I don't remember the relationship.
Yeah.
I saw the same thing. Yeah.
The only reason I bring that up is because we are all that connected. And like, we're having a conversation in book club. That's where Debbie and I met. We were having a conversation in book club about the thing that's missing and all the stuff that we're talking about. And Debbie brought up, it's like humanity. It's like, why do people not see our humanity? And I think that's like and I'm like, well, it's rooted in capitalism, right? It's all of these things. Anyway, our ability to take a pause and to hold space and to live in the truth is a gift. It's also like really uncomfortable. Like when I write the spoken word stuff, it comes from a different place than I was talking a little bit about Rick last night with like lyrics, right? Some of my spoken word, I have to give myself permission to just go and free myself of form, and so that all the things can come out. At the same time, I recognize that it is a lot of content coming to a listener. And my hope is that if somebody missed something, you will go back in and engage it and look up the references and be like, oh, what? Katie's talking about 1919 and where was that? Da, da, da. And then hopefully someday I'll give a dramaturgy, like a list of all my resources with my work, so people can go in and do their research and be like, oh, that's what she was talking about. But I do feel like our ability to take a breath in all of that is just as important, like you're saying, Erin, right? With Eleanor's amazing, like the nap, nap ministry and the nap time. Like, at the end, Send Me Somewhere for me is almost like a meditation. If I can sit at the piano and just play that motif over and over again and not worry about doing it, it's a meditative practice. And then by the time of it, at the end of it, and it's funny that it was caught on mic, was that breath. It's like, whatever we can do to find our ability to breathe, I think that we must do. I don't know if that makes any sense. It was a plan. It needed to be there. I'm really happy it's there. I'm happy that it didn't. I was nervous. I was like, oh, here comes the break. I'm worried that everyone's going to go, what's happening? You know? But yeah, like what happens when we slow down? And because there's so much space that I want to hold for every experience that didn't feel good. If you're a Black or brown body, right? Like I want to hold that. I want to hold space for your ick. I want to hold space for your dreams. I want to hold space for your limitless possibilities of what is to come for you. I want to hold space for all of that. And that takes a lot of time.
We have an amazing question from someone who's tuned in. And the question is, I'm interested in how you knitted the reality of our present time, the history of the Black experience, and the perspective from outer space.
Do you know who that person is, Aaron?
No.
That's my mother.
Hi, Mom.
Yeah, you would know because it's a white lady. Also, her name is Kimberly Lord. Like, that is my mother. I'm interested in how you knitted the reality of our present time, the history of Black experience, and the perspective from outer space. In order for me to understand what it was that I was experiencing in my own reality, because I chose to find myself in literature. I chose to find myself in Gwendolyn Brooks and Pauli Murray and in Ntozake Shange, and I chose to, and Lorraine Hansberry and Pauline Hopkins. I chose to find myself in work, written word that spoke to me, that resonated with me. And so I had to also then put it into context of time. And so I think that the Black experience is, we're constantly looking back. That's taking space is almost like we need to go back, like look at your history, go outside of your cell phone and go outside of that and pick up a book and figure out like who said it before where we're getting it now, because someone has. That's what taking space kind of is. And then you're like, oh, I'm not alone in that. So what comes next? Sun Songs is like, well, I can't live in the past because I want to leave something. But also, I don't know what that future looks like. I also like, and then you're like, okay, Afrofuturism, right? And there has to be more than the confines of our experiences that are so limited here. And not here as in like just in America, but like on this planet. And I think that desire to transcend something, right? The bounds of my physical body, like it's like space. It's like, well, there are artists who did go to space. Like, well, why are they going to space? And I think that it's because that's an idea about the possibility of like what's to come. And, you know, I will say again, that Mae Jemison quote, look up and live deeply. Like, why is a Black woman who's been to space telling me to look up and live deeply? And I've never been to space, but I think that it would make all of the things that we are so burdened by, rightfully so, seem not so insignificant. It's just like, but even in that sentiment, it's the same thing about that river, right? The river just moves. The river is not like concerned with isms and identity politics and all that stuff. A river just goes. And I'm like, so one of the things that I was looking up is Nabta Playa. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Nabta Playa, but they're basically, it's an African, you guys can go, this is my dramaturgy for my stuff. It originally came out, this is the original article in 1998, Letters to Nature, in this like science magazine. And the Sahara west of the Nile in southern Egypt was a Hyperade and unoccupied during most of the late Pleistocene. Most of these words I can't even pronounce. Anyway, it's a group of rocks that are literally designed to, before there were markers of things, our ancestors were letting the stars guide us. And it was before there were clocks, and before there was Siri, and before there was, even written word. Our ancestors, because it's like 6,000 years ago, put these rocks in the planet before Stonehenge too, right? Like, of course we were doing it first. We were always doing it first. But we looked, they're literally set up geographically sound so that stars can tell them what time of year it is, and they need to know that. And so, in order for them to be able to grow their crops and travel, like all that stuff. And I was like, okay, well, our ancestors were looking to the stars too. Then there's this other crazy thing. This is an article in the Colored American magazine, dated May 1906, and it's called Education and Genetic Psychology. This is my dramaturgy. Like, you guys hear like a song and that's so beautiful, but this excites me. Anyway, it's written by a Black woman named Josephine Sloan Yates, and she is one of the first Black women to get her master's degree in science. Anyway, this whole article, she's looking at the relationship to our children, and she's like, our children are not getting something in education. And so she specifically she goes back to Froebel, and then she says, most educators agree that the child comes into the world with his heritage or instincts and tendencies. And when he reaches the schoolroom, he's already in the process of adjusting himself to his environment or to the world in which he lives, moves, and has his being. So it's written in 1906, right? But then she says, well, they were in Germany, the kids are having class outside. So like, and their kid, like, why are the Germans taking their kids outside? And you look, I don't know if you guys know about the Black school, I think that they're calling it. It was crowdfunded by a bunch of Black people, and they wanted to invent a new school that's like free of Eurocentric, westernized pedagogy. And there's another book too that I was reading about, I think it's Freedom Farmers. Right? That's like, God, at the root of it, I'm sure my mom's like, what is she saying? She's not answering my question. I'm trying. Space is the natural world. And I believe that all of the answers that I need are in the natural world. And at the fundamentals of anything is that you're just made up of a bunch of atoms. What do I have in common with the river? What do I have in common with bumblebees? What do I have in common with the trees? Okay, well, I need light, I need air, and I need water. I also need fertile ground. I need community. These things, I believe, are the key to me remembering or figuring out how to live my best life in a society that's telling me I need all these things.
You know, I think one of the other things your mother asked you was if you want to be sent somewhere, then where is this place you want to go? Where is this safe place? And as I listen to you, I think that, you know, when you talk about the scientists have always questioned the time and space parameters and the relationship between them. You a question in one of your lyrics, the relationship between the trees and the breeze, right? Right. And it's like, what is our relationship to that which provides resistance for us? And that's the stuff that makes us think that where we're going is some place we're expected to go that's freer, when in fact the free is right here.
Totally.
And it's in your meditation. It's in how you pull it all together. Right?
Yes. There's a song that's not in it didn't make it in just because it's a duet. It's called Just One. And it's a duet between two of the characters and from Sun Songs. I don't know who they are yet, but it starts off like, do you think we could stay for just one more moment? For just one more moment is all that I need. And then that's one. It basically, the other person then comes in is like, do you realize that you don't have to ask me permission to stay here because you're always meant to be here. This is where you were meant to be. But it was where you are. And so that's the kicker of like all the things, but well, where is it? And I'm like, well, I think that there's one knowing entity and then there's one that's not so and not so knowing. And then in those moments, and that's one of the kickers of the song, it's like, if we make a lifetime of moments of nirvana, then you've succeeded. And our ability to access that moment, that's the place.
Mm-hmm.
That's the like you are exactly where you're supposed to be.
Yes.
But it's like, oh, but I had to go through all this stuff to be here. And yes, it was always, Debbie will always says that. She's the first person I heard to say it. She says, you're always talking to yourself from the future. And, and Lana Turner, one of the most brilliant, beautiful, Black women, she runs book club, and she says that's like, you are exactly where you're supposed to be, even in those moments that don't feel great. And so is that, for me, is outer space where I am? Am I in space? And in the moments that I realize that, it is the past and the present and the future coming together. Yeah. It is our ancestors. It is, everyone who I've lost. It is everyone who's going to come. And in those moments where there was a moment in rehearsal with Jason and Jarrett. Jason Gray plays piano, Jarrett Murray plays bass, and Debbie was filming, and we were playing, singing A Conversation with the Moon, which you'll see with the heart stuff. And that one starts, I wonder if you can see clearly from where you are. And no joke, I had to stop because I was like, everyone is here with us in this room right now. And we have literally synced time, and I can't perform because I'm a little overwhelmed.
But you're where you must be. That's the point. You're where, Aaron, you asked that question. That pause was exactly where she had to be.
Exactly. Speaking of transcending time and space and either speaking to yourself from the future or going back in the past, I have a really not funny question, but a different question for you. Okay. How would you start a love letter to your 12-year-old self?
I would tell her that she is perfect. I would say, remember how, forgive me, I would say, don't stop playing. I would say, your sisters will always be there for you. My siblings. I would say, I would tell her that, like, you already know the answers, and everybody who's telling you, I would say you're going to be okay. I would say that, I would say play, love, explore, surround yourself with people who make you feel good. I always say, like, my therapist, but I, only had like 5 sessions, 3 of which were free, and then I couldn't afford it anymore. But my therapist told me that from one of those first sessions, she said, reciprocity is really important to you. And that's one thing that I think that I've had to learn, that I would say to my 12-year-old self, I would say, make sure that the people that you are giving to give back to you as much as you give to them.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
You caught me off guard, Aaron. I'm like, ugh.
But you know, honestly, that only comes with because I've spent time with you. I mean, you know, like just sitting in the rehearsal room with you, watching you work, listen to how you speak about the work, listen to how you process the work, listening to even how you explain the lyrics, the songs, to the flow of everything to the musicians to your collaborators when you're getting ready to record. I mean, that is something that I could have asked in the rehearsal room, but I saved it for today's conversation. Just because I almost want to say I felt your heart so much. Like you give your heart even in a rehearsal. And I don't want to say that's odd for artists because it's not odd. Most artists, because it's your soul, you're giving your soul, you're giving of yourself. And it was, you know, it's just, yeah, that question was actually born out of just being in the space with you. And I almost knew that it would be a question that you would answer honestly and authentically, because that's just you. You know, and speaking of collaborators and, you know, this time that we're in, has your idea of collaboration changed over the past year? Or has it, or the way you approach collaboration, has it changed over the past year?
Yeah, I in school I learned how to be a good collaborator in the business sense, right? That like if somebody wants to hire me for a certain project, I know how to get my deliverables out in a matter of time, and I know how to. I'm gracious. I know how to those things. I know how to, you know, adapt in different rooms, and I know how to do that. I learned that. I'm grateful for that. Where I am now is that the thing that I think that I've known, I'm learning that it is okay for me to say no to collaborations that don't feel right for me. And I'm like, that's a really scary thing that like, I don't, like, who am I to say no to a job, right? It's like, who am I to say no to income? Who am I to say no to somebody fancy or like, but at the root of it, I have learned over the past year that creating the work in spaces that lend themselves to creating in a way that is rooted in trust and respect and transparency and love and grace makes for better work. And this thing that we do as artists, as creators, as humans is bigger than us, you know, like just because I can doesn't mean I have to, you know, and I've gotten better at seeing the things that don't feel right. Like sometimes you can sense that it's not right even in the initial email. You know, you're like, oh, you know, or then like being in a production where you're asking questions about the character, and then that resistance, right? Like you're like, how long is it going to be before that ick shows itself? And I love to tell stories. I do. And I love to have enough money to pay my rent and to keep the lights on and to, at the same time, the cost of creating in spaces that aren't actually rooted in, that aren't synonymous, like with my fundamental beliefs, they're not worth it. And so, and then that's crazy because you get in the spaces like with, you know, even in our initial conversation, Aaron, there was you hold space, and it has only grown. And there's other thing too, when you say no to something which feels really scary, the universe rewards you like tenfold after the fact. Like it always does. And And there are people who are working really hard to have work made in spaces like that. But you may have to like, they're not going to be the ones that like everybody's telling you about, right? Because it's like, I don't think anybody at school would have ever said to me, like, oh, you've got to search out, high arts, you've got to find Crossroads. But like, high arts was on my radar when I first moved to New York. I think and then I just stayed on your email thread or something, and I have gotten more from this residency from humans engaging in my work, like, than I ever could have imagined. Collaborations is a gift, because like when you are in those spaces that feel good, and you're with a community that is also like, and not everybody will use the same language to do it, right? Like lighting people use lights, like Jacinth uses his fingers, Jarrett uses his bass, Debbie uses her pen and also the camera, like whatever costume uses costumes. We all find a different way. We all have a different way to communicate our piece of the puzzle. But if we all come together and we're like interested in kind of hearing that, and there's that like, it's what's on the other side artistically is incredible. I take collaboration really seriously. It's a really like, and because I've had good ones, I'm a little bit like, you can't pay me enough if it doesn't feel good. Like, I know what Nirvana feels like. I know I know what working with people who love us looks like. I know what it feels like. I know what it smells like. And that is where the work can grow.
So as we're unfortunately drawing, because I still have like 5 more questions, but no. I guess, I mean, before I ask you, like, how can the audience stay in touch with you, blah, 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 blah. What is, as an artist, what do you need in this time? How can organizations, institutions like High Arts and Crossroads support artists right now?
I mean, I feel like the biggest thing is like, and we're always trying to figure it out, and it's a hard conversation to have. I think that it's gendered, but it's like, it's money, right? Like, if I can pay my rent, then I can create. If that stress is taken away, if I can pay my rent and I can eat, if those basic things are covered, then I can continue to create. And because there's also another tricky thing, right? Because then there's the capitalist mentality that's like, well, if you want money to do what you got to do, then you've got to be creating content, right? It's like so many songs for like, okay, well, and then it's like, yeah, but then if I'm creating for money, it's not going to feel the same, and it's not going to have that same effect. So if you want me to do the thing that I got to do, I just need enough money. I need like financial stability, right? And then also I think that it's yeah, Debbie said safe spaces where, like, identity politics are a really real thing. They are gendered. They are racialized. They are colorized, right? Like, they are sexualized. All of these things exist in spaces. There are certain people, when you walk into any sort of space, that are initially going to get more power from walking in a space. If we can somehow acknowledge that exists and then restructure it, while also not putting it on the work of any one person to educate everybody else, right? Like, my sister does that. My older sister, Megan, is literally paid to tell people about their ick and then be like, fix your shit. So it's like, if you have one Black person in your room, like in your space, don't ask them how you can do better. Go to the Google, do that work. You have one dark-skinned person in your room, don't go to the dark-skinned person and be like, do you feel safe? Tell me what I can do to be better. Like, what? No. you know, if everybody in the room is like, if heterosexuality and binary thoughts about gender and sexual orientation are the norm, right? The expectations of that. Somebody who does identify in that category realize that maybe that's not everybody in that room, right? Maybe not everybody in that room comes from two parents. Maybe not everybody comes from and not mean like they come from two parents, but right, maybe it's they come from everyone's experience is different. And so to think that your experience and what you want and what you need in a room is the most important thing that you can speak for everybody is like such a big problem. I know what I need. I can like clear boundaries. Like that's another thing too. That's like, I can't do this right now. But if we can all acknowledge that we're learning and just that that's a real thing of like unlearning all the ick in these spaces of creation, that's a huge thing. Like, I don't need white people to be like, I'm white and I'm so sorry. Cause it's like, that's work. I can't hold you. Cause for me to get up and out the door was a really huge deal. And if I'm late, it's probably because I was so anxious putting on 20 different outfits because I'm really nervous about having to show up, you know, or something happened, right? Like it's class, it's socioeconomic, it's skin tone, it's hair texture, it's hair features, it's able-bodied, differently abled. It's all of these things are always at play. And I think that if we can like just at least check in with ourselves about like what privileges we have and maybe what like not to do, that in these spaces that are going to be and we want to be as different as the world is, we can maneuver through them in a way that is safe. Because I do believe that there are people who need more protection than others. And when we are constantly protecting ourselves and our light and censoring ourselves, we don't always have it in it. And there are people who have more power who can, you know, bust down walls. You know, I come from a white mother. I'm light skinned. I have all these degrees. I speak a certain way that will allow me, the people, to receive what I'm saying. And in school, I couldn't say anything. I didn't have the terms, and I flubbed my words, and I was always talking about blackness. And everyone was like, "Oh, Katie would be so cool. She just wasn't always talking about blackness." And it's like, I'm black. That's my truth. You know, like.
But I don't think that all of us have to do the same thing. I think that some of us can find our safe space. Some of us need to address the oppositional issues.
Yes.
Bell Hooks. You spoke of her last night. I mean, we all have different spaces we need to push our journey into. What's that? Yes. That's right. Oppositional gaze. Yeah. We each have our roles to play.
Yeah.
I love the role that you're playing. I love and you don't even know you're playing a role. You're just trying to find yourself, be yourself. And that is so appreciated. Aaron, I can't believe that I do believe, what am I talking about? That you gave her such a special space at High Arts to be able to find stuff and discover. And you know, we're in a world where people say, well, what are you talking about? You're artists, you're doing what you want to do. What more do you want? Well, they don't get it. So, we don't have to be mad at them for not getting it. We just need to take care of ourselves. And that is what you're doing, Aaron. That is what High Arts is doing, is we're taking care of ourselves. And whether any casting director again asks us some stupid ass question, we don't have to answer that. We don't have to hear it, because we can create our own worlds, which is what High Arts is doing, which is what Crossroads is doing, which is what so many other Black theaters are doing all over this world. We can create ourselves.
And have been. Like, you guys have been around. There are spaces that have been around, and like, it's so exciting that there are new spaces that are coming up, and at the same time, there's a lot of places that could really benefit from like young minds who are like excited about how to do the thing and like bridging that gap. And like you guys have been doing the work.
Yeah.
So Katie, before we go, how can people follow you, learn more about you, you know, see the wonderful work that you do?
I have a performance, a share, not even performance. We're going to take that term off of it. It is a share of my work in progress with High Arts, April 29th at 7 o'clock. That will be featuring Jarrett Murray on the bass, Jasmine Faywood on the piano, and the amazing direction and photo video from Deborah Cowell. I have a webpage, kvmadison.com. I post on Instagram. Those are my places. Yeah. My Instagram handle is at kvmad. You can find me through Crossroads. You can find me through High Arts. Yeah. Thank
Find
you.
her.
Like it's this is just as much of the process as it is me sitting down and writing. This is a huge gift. This is very special. I'm gonna try not to be emotional, but I speak from my heart. I'm a middle child and I'm a Capricorn. And and I'm from the Midwest. Like it's lots of feelings. But this is nothing short of magical. And it, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your heart. Thank you for sharing your work and your artistry. Rick, do you want to take us out and talk about what's happening for the rest of the week?
Oh my God, yes. So next week, first of all, I also want to thank the New Jersey Theater Alliance. This is part of the Stages Festival of 2021. And we're in 2021, right? Yeah, we are. And this is Thursday, which means that tomorrow's Friday. And gentleman Jalen Livingston is up next. And he's got this piece called The Whole. I don't want to say too much about it, but you can go on our websites and you could check it out. More importantly, be here tomorrow at 7 o'clock. Okay, be here, and you'll have the time of your life because you're part of this process. These are not productions; these are artists who are in process, and you're a part of it too. You are an important part of it by simply witnessing, by making the comments. Thank you, Mom. Thank you. I see people from Crossroads on here. These comments are all important. Your input's important as Katie speaks to the importance of collaboration between artists. We've been missing that. So just as we've been missing the audience on the other side, theater we need you. So be here tomorrow. And then on Saturday night is Ernie Da Silva has a piece. Really excited about this, and his piece is called Smoke. And in each case, that's at 7 o'clock also. And in each case, the writers are like I said, they're in the middle of something. They have questions for themselves, it's such a joy to be part of that moment, that 12-year-old in our work. Thank you. So anyway, I guess you're saying take it out. Is that what you're saying, Aaron?
That's it. Take it
All
out.
right.
I think we're done for the night.
We are. Katie, love you. Love your work. Go to her website, please, folks, because there's so much about her that's there. And keep supporting residencies wherever they are for amazing artists like Ms. Madison. Thank you, everybody, and good night.
Good night.
Okay. And thank you too, Aaron, because you're still there. I see you.
I'm here. Thank you.
You're there. Well, since we're here, you want to talk about the artwork behind you?
Sure. If I can't move my computer though, but it's actually my first commission piece. There's an artist by the name of Vanessa Butler, who I went to school with at California